Yo, check out this clip from the pre-patch podcast.
Phil Spencer came out today, said he was very disappointed in the negative reaction that Redfall had. He took full responsibility for it. We had a bit of a heated conversation in the podcast chat today about it. I don't think we're gonna get heated.
Y'all
but
were cracking me up.
Nah.
so essentially, he had a. I didn't watch the full interview. It was an interview with some kind of.
I've seen the Spark Notes. It was like a 30-minute interview. I've seen maybe like 3 or 4 different segments from it.
Yeah, that's the same with me.
Right.
I've only seen like 3 or 4 different segments out of it. So
Yeah.
he had an interview with I think it's XCast. You know what? Let's pause. Phil, if you're listening, bro, which I don't know why you wouldn't be, because our podcast is the best fucking podcast in the world. Hit me up. Let's get you on. We can talk about this. We got ideas. Anyways. So he went on there. He had he expressed his disappointment at the player base's reception for Arcane's Vampire Hunter game. For the most part, and forgive me if I'm forgetting things. I have a lot to read right now, or I had a lot to read. He said that the critical response wasn't what he wanted. They weren't really intending, not intending. They weren't expecting to get a fucking 60 on Metacritic. Obviously, I don't think any gaming company expects to have
low
No.
60s.
that low of a Metacritic rating.
Now it's lower.
No.
It's
Go ahead.
I don't know what they were expecting though, because Phil Spencer has played this game. He played 37 minutes of it and then stopped for whatever reason that was.
well, we know what that reason was.
I'm
But
personally curious about
Their
it, man.
quality
Like,
assurance is what I think was brought into question more so than
Yeah.
anything.
for sure.
Them being like bringing Bethesda and Arcane Studios simultaneously under the Xbox umbrella. Where is that quality assurance? Because it doesn't seem to be there. And
Yeah.
I don't know who is pushing this game to release in the state it was in, whether it was Bethesda
It was
or
Bethesda,
Xbox
Bethesda.
overall.
It was-
Bethesda.
I would personally say it was probably Bethesda. I don't know how much. I don't know how much, because the biggest thing with and
Just
I
telling
know
and how they push their other games
Well,
too. They're like,
I know-
it looks good. Let's push it.
I know where you're going with this, because it's one of those things where it's like, well, if Xbox and Microsoft had a hand in this, why didn't they stop it? The thing with Xbox and Bethesda is when they first acquired Bethesda, it was a hands-off approach. That was their biggest thing.
Right.
And I think that he covers that in this
He does, and I was going to bring that
in
up.
this interview. So when they first acquired it, that was the biggest thing with Bethesda, was like, they were like, hey, you're gonna have full freedom. You guys do whatever the fuck you need to do to get your video games out. And say what you want about that, it's probably a bad choice with Bethesda given their fucking track record.
Yeah.
I applaud them though for allowing it. I just wish I'm with you kind of. I wish that they would have had a little bit more control, at least on the quality side of
Yeah.
things, because again,
Now,
like you
The
said,
quality.
this is like the first big title that is an Xbox exclusive.
Well, legit.
know?
Is it the
From
the first
Bethesda,
for
from
Xbox exclusive?
Bethesda,
Yeah.
from Bethesda,
Yeah.
Yeah, on the next generation.
on the next
system.
generation console.
And
Yes,
I know I made a big deal in the podcast chat about not bringing competitors into it, but hear me out here. This echoes very similarly to the Forspoken.
I was
Oh,
thinking
you
the same
motherfucker.
thing. I was thinking the same thing.
No, we had, when we were talking about Forspoken before,
Yeah.
we said Square Enix was way too hands off in that game's
Yeah.
development, and that's the only
Yeah.
reason that Luminous Studios pushed out a title
for
the
sure.
way that it did, was because Sony was pushing them to release it. Square Enix was way too hands off on the entire development, and they cornered themselves. Well, we
Yeah.
have to put it out. Big Daddy Sony that's paying our bills once a game, and we need to deliver. Well,
Mm-hmm.
we know what we got with that. This
For
seems
sure.
like a very similar situation, only it's like Xbox, the hands-off ones, and Bethesda's like,
Yeah, Bethesda was the
we
one
need to get it
pushing.
out there, guys. Todd Howard needs to go on another vacation.
Yeah,
I was thinking that
it's
same
it's
thing.
very interesting. So one of the comments he made is we do mock reviews for every game that we launch, and this was double digits lower than we were expecting, essentially. That's one of the disappointing things. We would never strive to launch a game that we thought was going to review in the low 60s, and that's part of their goals, essentially. Which I commend them on.
Yeah.
That's
I-
an
not part of
interesting
their
way
goals,
of
yes.
going about it.
I commend them on that at least. I just wish that they would have pushed for it a little bit harder. I guess it's definitely one of those.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One of those interesting ones. Obviously, with the title locked at 30 FPS is an oddity. We already taled about that. It's very strange, man.
The
I
fact that it's
think-
getting patched. I've
Yeah.
never heard of a game.
I've
getting
never heard of it
up
getting patched
Right.
for 60 for sure.
A frame lock.
The,
Yeah.
the
I've-
only time that I've even seen that happen was from PS4 to PS5, where they did the update patches to uprate the.
I was
Those are
about
games
to
that have
say
been out for forever.
Yeah.
that's what I was about to say. I've heard of patches for them like upgrading it for quality, like updating like the HD texture packs and everything like that. But I don't think I've ever heard of a game updating for 60 FPS. That's weird. That's just
Very weird.
strange. I don't understand it. I will commend Phil Spencer on coming out and biting the bullet though.
That's
And
big
that's-
balls.
we talked about that today. Like
Jim Ryan wouldn't be caught dead.
I wasn't gonna say it, sir.
I'm trying to be copacetic here, okay?
So that was one of the things that I said. Is like Jim Ryan would never be caught dead coming out and saying that. You would never see like an EA president coming out and being like, "Hey, sorry about the fucking state of Jedi Survivor,
Fallen
right?
Order.
Fallen Order, or Jedi
Or,
Survivor, or whatever,
Survivor. Yeah.
You'd never see like a Nintendo boss coming out and being like, "Sorry, we fucked up on that last game."
Reggie
I will
would
give.
have, but Nintendo doesn't drop the ball that much.
Yeah,
I was
no,
gonna
that is
say,
very
Nintendo
true.
does Nintendo drop the
Reggie
ball?
would have 100% been out there.
That is
if-
very true.
If something messed up.
That is very true. But I gotta commend Phil on coming out and just being like, "Yeah, we fucked up. That's my bad. I take personal responsibility for it." Because that's
Good guy, Phil.
you will never hear another president from a company coming out and being like, "Yeah, we fucked up. My bad."
My question to you: do you think that Microsoft, in a way, and I hate to bring this up this way, do you think they're like making Phil the sacrificial lamb for both this and the Xbox merger issues?
I don't think so.
Okay, or do you think he's doing this?
I think
of,
he's
like,
doing it
it's
up-
my
I think he's doing this
responsibility?
of his
Yeah.
own free will.
I think he's doing it
Okay.
because that we've seen Phil come out and do this kind of shit before, where he comes out and he's just like, "Yeah, we this is what we want from Xbox, and we're not ashamed to say it." Like he's been very vocal recently. Then that's the only reason why I say I don't think it's anything to do with Xbox or Microsoft throwing him under the bus, essentially. Right?
Okay, that's good, because like I was trying to say, I have respect for Phil. I think he's a little bit out there. Like, I think he's ambitious with his thought process, and it might be too ambitious for what he's able to do. But I do genuinely agree with you guys. He's got gamers at the forefront of his mind when he comes to a lot of the decisions he makes
For
on
sure.
Xbox.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on with more Microsoft news and Xbox news. Still in the Redfall the Redfall situation. We got a long conversation about Xbox and Redfall tonight,
Yeah,
guys.
that's why this is literally titled All About Xbox. I mean,
All about Xbox. Phil Spencer during that interview also said that he feels like they have done a better job with Starfield's development than they did with Redfall, which
I sure hope so, man.
I really hope so. I really do.
yeah.
I really do. So he offered assurances to fans that Starfield will hopefully launch in a better state. I like how he added the hopefully, because he's not entirely sure about Bethesda.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's the part of him that's saving his own ass. Like I said, hopefully, like I wasn't totally
So
guaranteeing it.
he's saying that hopefully it'll launch in a better state than this week's Xbox exclusive Redfall, claiming that the publisher did a better job in terms of assisting Starfield in terms of their developments. Discussing the
good.
development of Redfall on a new episode, Spencer explained how acquisitions of the studio is the midway through development of the game. So I think Redfall, when they acquired Bethesda, it was already halfway through development, regardless of how you look at that. Which
Yeah,
Right.
and honestly, that probably coincides with why they had an
why they
identity
changed
crisis.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
It is very
yeah.
possible. He says when we acquire studios, there are games that are in development, and then there's things that are either really early in development or not even conceived yet. I think we need to improve in engaging with games that are midway through production. when they can become part of Xbox, or when they become
Yeah.
part of Xbox.
Especially since these are going to be like the flagship games. Like, you need to show your investors, you
For
need to
sure.
show your
Oh, yeah.
fans that this is what you can expect from our products with these acquisitions. You
Yep.
need to earn it. Like, you can pay for it all day, but you need to earn it.
Yep. So he says we did not do a good job early on in engaging Arcane Austin to really help them understand what it meant to be part of Xbox and part of a first party, and use some of our internal resources to help them move along that journey even faster. We basically just left them to work on the game essentially, which again, like Scruffy said, it's very apparent. Like that is
Yeah.
very apparent going through that. He says, Spencer says, according to Xbox, did a better job with Starfield because the game was earlier on in production when Bethesda joined Microsoft. Redfall was further on along in development, and so assistance was more difficult. Nonetheless, Spencer has said that we should have been there for Arcane Studios director Harvey Smith and the team earlier. I think that that's on us, which I agree. That is entirely on Xbox.
Yeah.
Even if
And
it's
that's awesome that they're
even
owning
if it's
up
a
to that, you
game,
know.
yeah, even if it's a game that's like
Honestly.
almost done, like a month out from development, if you acquire that studio, your immediate priority should be, do you
Yeah, I
fucking
mean,
need anything? Like
you're
let's look at
responsible
this.
now for that.
Like yeah, that's the
studio.
biggest thing is like it's now under the umbrella of Xbox to basically state that Xbox, we want Xbox to be a certain way when it comes to like what games, because they've said this before. We want Xbox to be represented in this certain way when it comes to games,
Yeah.
obviously, right? They don't want to release trash. They should, like, if they acquire a studio, it should immediately be, hey, that new game that's coming out in a month, we want to see it now.
Exactly.
I want to see it
when they acquire a new studio. The game that the games that studio puts out is now representing their face. You know.
Yeah.
And
So like
speaking
they
directly with
should.
Yeah, and speaking directly with Arcane, the last game that they were working on before the acquisition, and it might have actually, I think it released just as the acquisition was going through,
Deathloop
was
was it?
Deathloop,
Yeah.
and that
Yes.
was a timed PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah.
And that is, I don't know how it is on the development end of things, but Sony is the exact opposite approach, at least it seems so far with its acquisitions, where they are like extremely up the ass of every developer that they purchase with their game quality. Like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, a lot of Sony games kind of have like a sameness to
Yeah.
them in a way.
I've noticed. Yeah.
There's definitely a Sony hand. I think they're extremely heavy-handed with how much control they have over their studios, with the
I don't doubt
exception
it.
of Bungie.
I really don't doubt it. Yeah. Speaking of Sony, Phil Spencer, again, we're still talking about Xbox, guys. Phil Spencer says Xbox is not currently trying to be in the console war. So they're not trying to out console Sony or Nintendo. And great games, they're just trying to make basically great games for their console.
I think they've been trying to make
that's
that
what they're
apparent
focusing
for
on.
years now.
Yeah. It's been a, we've talked about it
That's
multiple
been their
times.
focus.
We've talked about it multiple times on the podcast, especially in the recent months, where it's like
Yeah.
it almost feels like Xbox is just like, yeah, you know, we're okay with, you know, yeah, Sony's doing great. Like, great. Cool. They got a better console. Awesome.
Especially
We don't care.
especially with this merger, like with this merger that they've been trying to go for, like they've been making apparent like they want to do it for the consumer. They want to even include Sony in it, and Sony's just still steadfast on no, that ain't happening, bro. No.
So
Yeah.
Spencer,
I actually watched this segment like this is probably the longest segment that I watched.
well, go ahead and cover it, because I did not watch this all that in depth.
Yeah, so this segment, he was saying that they are not trying to compete with the PlayStation and Nintendo consoles, although they do still value Xbox consoles as a core part of the Xbox business model.
They're never going to give up. They're never going to
soon.
give it up. Obviously, the one thing that I laugh at is when people are like, "Well, if Sony beats Xbox in the console, Xbox is just going to vanish." That's never going to happen. Like Xbox is not going to vanish. Like Xbox is going to just continuously be a thing in the background.
Right. He went on to say that while consoles aren't their primary thing, what they are wanting to get done out, like the vision, and this is whether the Activision deal goes through or not, is they're wanting to make it so that there's one big Xbox first party title per quarter. So 4 games per year from Xbox first party games
Mm,
is
okay.
the aim. And he says we're getting close to getting there. He also, when talking about the consoles and why they're kind of opting out of that mindset with Xbox moving forward, is he specifically blames it on them losing the Xbox One era, the Xbox One PS4 era of gaming. He said that was the worst generation for them to lose because the PS3 era and Xbox 360 era, they won wholeheartedly, but that was still a very much disc based generation. PS4 and Xbox One was where people started building digital libraries. And he fully admits that them losing that generation as hard as they did, people had already built up their digital libraries on PlayStation because of that. And they're in it for the long haul at that period. They would be abandoning a
Yeah.
massive collection of games that they gathered over the PS3 era because if they were to switch to Xbox, which is making it even less likely for them to be able to steal or not steal, but convince people to come over from the PlayStation
Yeah.
platform. He
And
recognizes
I
that's
didn't
not
even
going to
think
happen.
about that.
That's one thing
Yeah.
that he says right here as well. This was another one that we were going to talk about. Is like he says that there's no world where Starfield is so good that people sell their PS5s and move to Xbox. And
Yeah,
I agree
and,
with
and,
him.
and,
Yeah.
it, and it echoes that point.
Yeah,
People have
Exactly.
already established
I
themselves
completely
in that
agree with him.
niche.
Yeah, there's no way like there's obviously it's a Bethesda game. There's no way it's going to be good enough to begin with that people are going to sell. But like even if it released in the most top notch way, right? Even if there was
Right.
zero bugs, if there was zero issues, which we all know that's not going to happen, there's no way that somebody that is a diehard fucking Sony fan is going to be like, man, okay, I'm done with Sony.
Right.
There's no
Right.
way. There's
Yeah.
absolutely no fucking way. That's
Which makes
that's
sense
just crazy
why they
talk.
are trying to be a supplementary factor towards other consoles.
Yeah.
They recognize that if they want to continue to exist in this landscape, they need to make themselves a supplementary factor to other
Which
developers, and
I
which
go ahead.
only benefits everybody.
Yeah.
It only benefits gamers to have that kind of a mindset.
Which
To-
just kind of pushes forward like this statement that he said right here. It we've talked about like Sony. If there was ever a way that Xbox could win over Sony, me personally, I feel that Sony would just go the routes of like Nintendo and just kind of do their own thing in the corner, right? I think it's the same
Right.
thing with Xbox, and Phil says the same thing. He says that right here, the console is a core of the Xbox brand, but he also insisted that we have to go off and do our own thing with Game Pass, with the stuff we do with Xbox Cloud Gaming and the way we build our games. There's not a win for Xbox in staying in the wake of somebody else, right? So like if they finally do get beat out in this quote unquote console war that they've been waging with Sony for years, they'll just go about doing their own thing, which I think that is what they've been setting themselves up for the last year or two,
Right.
honestly.
I
And
mean, with
it's
the
that's
Xbox
interesting.
Game Pass and all that
Yeah,
stuff and the cloud.
that's
Like, I think that's what they're setting themselves up
that's
for.
interesting to say. I'm almost wondering if they're finally just they're done with it. They're just like
I think they're bowing out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I genuinely think they are, because Game Pass is the only effective way that they have with fighting that digital library issue that they have against PlayStation.
Mhm.
The only way that they can get people to come to an Xbox platform, whether it's PC or the consoles, is to basically give them a digital library to make up for what they would be abandoning
Mhm.
on the other side.
Yeah.
Or supplement what they already have on the other side if they don't want to swap completely.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wish Sony wasn't the way they were, because I do think that there's a future potentially where Game Pass could end up on a Sony console. As weird as that sounds,
No,
I don't know.
I kind of understand that because I've
You
had that
understand
thought
where I'm coming
before.
from? I think it's a
Yeah.
long shot and a pipe
It's
dream.
a long shot, and
but
it's not. We're not. I don't even think we're necessarily saying like legit the Xbox Game Pass, but I think they can do something where they have like a, like a merge or something, like some sort of like collaboration. I don't know, but I see where you're coming from.
Yeah. It's possible.
Or go publisher only, like what
or go
Sim's
publisher
saying.
only. Yeah. That's
Mhm.
what I think will happen eventually is they'll
Yeah,
just
that's
be like, if
plausible.
we'll just go down the route of a publisher and you can play our games wherever you're going to play our games. That's
Right.
Yeah.
just
I think
in
the
the end.
biggest thing holding them back right now is somewhat to do with Redfall and some of the other titles that they've released recently, where the product that they're putting out towards Game Pass isn't enticing enough for people to give it a solid try. They've struggled recently with their launch titles. Halo wasn't received the best.
Mhm.
Redfall not received the best. Minecraft Legends not being received the best, even though it looks fun to me.
This is a good
But
game, I thought. I don't know.
It's
Yeah,
just it's
I think
niche,
it's the
I
big the
think.
biggest thing with that is that it's just not. Yeah, it's not what when you think of Minecraft, you don't think of a fucking
yeah.
RTS
it's-
adventure
even-
game.
But even still, it's hitting low 70s in reviews, just where
Yeah.
Halo was. So
Yeah.
the biggest hit that they've had so far was Hi-Fi Rush, which came out of nowhere and
Yeah,
shows
that
that
was the shadow
Bethesda
drop.
can produce good games.
Well, and the problem with Hi-Fi Rush as well is that like not a lot of people know about it because it just did come out of nowhere. Like it's a pretty big hidden gem. Like there's a lot of people that actually know about
Yeah.
it, but like in mainstream, you talk about Hi-Fi Rush and people don't know.
It's one
what
of those
really,
games that people glance over on Game
Yeah.
Pass. They're like, okay, this is just a filler game,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
knowing about it.
Exactly.
So they need to bring value to the Game Pass, and I
Funny-
think it's
Funny you should
it's
mention
getting-
that.
Yeah.
Funny you should mention that. Go ahead. Keep going. I didn't want to.
I think it's getting to the point where Xbox fans are getting concerned that Game Pass itself is dropping the quality of Xbox products. I don't know if that's the case or not, but
I don't
it's
think that's
getting
the
to that
case.
worry.
point.
But I don't think it's I don't think that's the case.
I don't think that's the case. I think the case of like their quality.
Because the biggest
currently-
argument I've seen with Redfall was, oh, well, it's on Game Pass, so you're not wasting it. Well, that's not really an excuse for poor quality of a product.
True. Yeah, 100%. No, just because it's on Game Pass doesn't mean that it should be.
Overlooked.
It should get it should get a free pass essentially. That it's
Yeah,
it's
'cause
quality
there's a
as
lot
well.
of great games on there.
Thank you for checking out the patch notes. If you enjoyed this small selection from our podcast, come and join us every Thursday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern for the full unfiltered pre-patch podcast. And check out our past shows on anchor.fm/prepatch podcast.